Rocking for a second, and I will get started. Hello, everyone. Here we are again for another Mavens Do It Better podcast, where we interview extraordinary experts who bring a light to our world. I could not be more excited than today to have a great friend, an amazing businesswoman. Her name is Marianne Emma Jeff. Hello.
Synchronicity.
Yeah, jazz hands. We decided we're going to do a video along with this, so here we go. Where are you coming to us today?
I'm coming from La Quinta, which for those of you who don't know California that well, is by Palm Springs in California.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marianne, we've known each other a long time, and she has got so many great things going on. She is a best-selling author, award-winning speaker, highly sought after, and she's a business coach. And so we've talked a lot about, women in tech, women in business, had a lot of wonderful guests on, and Marianne's been doing this a long time. How long have you been doing this?
10 years I've had the Women's Business Momentum Center, and a couple of years before that when I was coaching and I hadn't officially created it. Yeah.
Right. And we have to give a special shout out to our dear friend, Louis Parent, who is the reason we know each other. He used to live here in Los Angeles a long time ago. So let's give some kisses to Louis.
Louis.
Yes, Louis and Michael. So yay. So talk about the Women's Business Center a little bit. Talk about that.
So it's a place for women in business. It's virtual, where they can come together and stay in momentum. That's my big brand word, is momentum. It's, we can get inspired, we can get motivated, but can we stay in the momentum? And we all know that a lot of businesses go out of business within a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so to have something that's helping you stay in momentum, and I help them do that by helping them with productivity. I'm the Get It Done Diva, self-proclaimed. And I do that in a very different way. And I've evolved over the years with, it's not necessarily about pushing and hard work. It's about getting things done in a way that creates ease and fun and joy in your life. So I have a lot of productivity tools, like I do with the members of the Women's Business Momentum Center. Every Monday, we get on the phone together, we do a Zoom like this, and we spend 30 minutes. It's called Weekly Momentum. And so there's people from all over the world coming together, 30 minutes. Wow. I take them through. Every member gets my planner. I'm a little obsessed with tools. Planning.
I love things you write in still too, right?
Yeah.
It's tangible, and it means something to write something, I think.
Yeah, my big thing with that is because some people will go, well, I have everything electronic and I don't like paper. And I'm like, fine, that's great. Maybe you're not my people. However, I am such a geek for technology. I can sit there and unwrap a new piece of software and be lost for days. However, when I'm sitting and I'm doing that visionary work, which is so key, right? Action means nothing if you don't spend that time daydreaming and feeling into it. And so I need my physical planner because I use Google Calendar. However, I can't really see the whole week. I can't see the spaces and the flow. And I like to, my members laugh at me because I say, fondle your planner. Are you fondling your planner?
Is that a hashtag?
I should.
There you go.
Fondle your planner, right? So they all get this 90-day power planner. And so they're using that. We hop on the phone every Monday at 8, and we go through setting up your weekly evolution, taking some time to look back at the last week. Everybody's connecting with each other from all over the world, and it's a lot of fun. So the Women's Business Momentum Center, really about that idea of momentum. And then there's tools that they can use that are part of it to help them with their branding, their business storytelling, writing, and speaking, and really stepping out as experts and leaders in their industry.
That is so cool. And you do these on Zoom, yeah?
I do it on Zoom, yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have a community space is there a Facebook group, or is there something else where you have chit chat going on?
I have a Facebook page, the Women's Business Momentum Center. It's on Facebook, and you can definitely post there. Questions.
Awesome. That's awesome. And so let's see. When was the first book? And I know a lot of listeners, there's a lot of folks on here who are in the throes of, I work with people on personal brand as well. So it's like between personal brand and, putting yourself out there. getting that first book deal, you know, will you talk about that experience for our listeners?
Yeah.
Sure.
I knew I wanted to write a book,
Mm-hmm.
but I was struggling with what was going to go in this book because there was so many ideas.
Right.
And I remember the moment my daughter, who's 14 now, so this is how I'll figure out how long ago it was. I think she was about 8 or 9.
Okay.
And she did gymnastics, and I had all these ideas in my head. And I love mind maps. For those of you who don't know, you kind of, instead of a list, you're scribbling on a piece of paper, you've got a central idea in the middle, and then little lines with bubbles coming out. You can use colors and all kinds of stuff. And that's how I think. That's how I daydream and figure things out. So I'm sitting at gymnastics. I think it was like at least an hour, hour and a half class. And I've got my piece of paper, and the ideas came onto the page of what would be in the book. And then the name of the book came to me. So if she was about 8, this was probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I saw by looking at what was going to be in the book that it was going to be like a guide, that it was going to be a bunch of different tools. That's what I really wanted to create first. Now, before that, I'd created little workbooks here and there, and I published, so I knew the publishing process a little bit. I'd done one book which was 100 days of 100%, where I'd surveyed a bunch of people and then looked at really what does it mean to give 100%, and there was a workbook for that. But this was the first real book that wasn't a workbook. And then the title came to me, The Get It Done Diva's Guide to Business. I was so excited. We're driving back home from gymnastics, and my husband, no, it was just me and my daughter in the car, and I said, "The Get It Done Diva's Guide to Business." And my daughter's like, "If you can't even say it, you can't call it that."
Come on, Mom, let's go. Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
So I wanted that title so bad, I practiced it. And now I got it. So that was the first book. And it really was, there's a lot of, the only way I know to do storytelling and how I teach storytelling, and it's the way that most people who are good at it do it now, is with that vulnerability. It's stories, that share, that allow people to come into your world, to get to know you, to build relationships with you, with a very soft edge on promoting yourself that just happens very naturally and organically in that. So within the book, and I drive my mom crazy because my why, I don't know if you're all familiar with Simon Sinek. And so my why is to live out loud, which means that often it's just coming out my mouth. It's happening in my mouth. So this business book has a lot of my story in it, a lot of things that have happened to me. There's a lot of vulnerability into it, but it's also broken up into productivity tools, organizing, figuring things out, and then marketing tools, all kinds of little sections in there to help you with that. That was the first book.
That's so cool. Yeah, we talk about Simon Sinek. My personal why is to spread joy and connect people. So I'm with you. Yeah, I like starting with that. A lot of people don't have that for themselves, and I think it's important, and businesses as well, right? What's the reason you started this business? What's your why of your business? So going into, when I work with marketing clients on the biz side, that's definitely a piece of it. So second book.
Okay. Yeah. So the second book is Brand Me, which is the Mastering the Art of Business Storytelling.
Yep.
And it could work for anyone. It could work for someone in business. It could work for someone that has a career as a professional. It could work for someone that just wants to get better at telling stories.
Right.
And I really dive into, with what's really great about this book is there's a lot of examples, because I think a lot of the how-to books out there, they've got these great theories, and you get inspired and pumped up when you read it, and then you try to do it yourself. Even Simon Sinek's book, honestly, even his online course that he had, I mean, when he first launched that, I don't know if he still has it, the Starting With Why book. Yeah. It was really hard for people to figure out their why, because you couldn't really see the examples. So in this, I have stories of the why stories, the origin stories. That's great. A lot of the members. I have examples of why, examples of guiding principles and what guiding principles are, and then how to bring it all together and bring it into stories. And then I have a lot of like danger zones and pitfalls to avoid, and things to watch out for as you're beginning to put yourself out there and use storytelling in your business and in your life. Yeah. And with flipping through a bit, like, I think
You're absolutely right. Most people put out a problem and there's no solution. There's no example. There's no ways to deal with it. So thank you, first of all, for doing that, because I think that's a huge thing, especially in the business card book or the brand and storyteller books. You know, there's so many classes and courses and all that kind of stuff out there, but, and it's, here's all the things. But then I think people do go, well, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. Like, and having exercises and ways to go through that, I think that's super awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like Stephen Covey, for example, who created so many great tools.
Right.
However, it's like, okay, write your vision statement, or okay, come up with this purpose statement.
Yep.
We really, really need to, and I think the other thing is, even when you have examples, bouncing things off other people is so helpful.
Yeah.
And I have an eye and an ear for pulling that out, which I'm sure is why you do what you do too, and you have the same thing where we can listen, we can ask questions, and we can pull these things out, and that's really helpful to have someone able to do that. It's very hard to do this on your own. So if you're struggling with any of these things, your why or anything like that, it's very hard to do on your own.
Absolutely. And especially if you're in a moment of change or a crisis even, or if, say, for women getting back to work, men too, getting back to work after kids, or, there's lots of people that take care of aging parents. There's, a friend, Nancy McSherry-Jensen, who's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks. She has a company called Swing Shift, and it's all about getting people back to work after. It's like the transition, and so many of us have moments in our lives that, like life goes like, a roller coaster, you know what I mean? And you hold on with, one hand and you got one in the air, hopefully, you're like, whoa, but, sometimes you're like, holy cow, and I think that's super important. And I think, it's funny. I think, we've known each other a while, and we've been trying to get back connected, everyone. And it was one of those where I was like, I need to talk to her because I want to work with her. And so I'm looking forward to like having some of those conversations past this, because I love what you're doing. It's so exciting. And what's going on behind you, that circle? Yeah.
So the Women's Business Momentum Center, I like to have a model that we're using. So that, it's productivity. Yes, these are great ideas, but there's a very simple model behind it. So behind me, what we have is, it's really the elements of momentum. So broken it down into 5 things. The first one is really that passion piece. And so we need to be excited about something to get in momentum. Bottom line, if we're not excited, we're pushing ourselves, and we're going to burn out eventually. And I really feel strongly about this, and I feel strongly about it because I have the experience. Part of my story is that when I first started the Women's Business Momentum Center 10 years ago, I was all about getting it done in the opposite way that I do now, where you're pushing, you're really going for it, because it was good at doing that. But it got to the point where my body just said, enough, done. And I burned out and ended up in bed for 6 months. And so I had to find another way of doing it, because I still craved the things that I wanted to do, but I was pushing too hard. I was doing things that maybe I didn't feel like doing sometimes, or pushing and not listening to my body, so not noticing. I mean, I would have, one year I had 3 or 4 ruptured eardrums that bled, and I didn't even notice until my ear started bleeding. And I think that's a great example of what so many business owners are doing. I call it light at the end of the tunnel syndrome, because we're going to, like, I can put my satisfaction on hold. I'm just going to sit in the tunnel. I'm just going to get to the light at the end of the tunnel, right? I'm just going to suffer, right?
Yep.
Screw that. No more. But that's how I operated. So now I demand, and one of the goals, the ways of being that I would like for all the members and for everyone, is this idea of 80% of the action that you're taking being because you're inspired to take it. And that starts right here with, really, you've got to ignite your passion. You've got to embrace it. And then your imagination. I've already talked about the planner, about daydreaming, seeing things on the page, mind mapping, daydreaming, and stretching your imagination. Otherwise, you just create the same thing again. And so I'm big about doing that in a lot of different ways. For me, I can be scribbling numbers and playing with different pricing on a piece of paper, which some people might think, well, that's not very creative. It's completely creative. I'm daydreaming. I play with we call it the dream schedule. It's in the planner, and you're just putting different ideas in there for your week. That is this imagination, that expanding your vision. Okay. And then we have, when you've done that, or, these don't have to go in order.
Yeah, completely.
They work best in order, but it doesn't have. Then we have being inspired to take action. So then you get into action. Once you kind of started your engine, you've looked at where you might want to go, you've looked at the map, then take action rather than taking action first. And then the other two are kind of nice things that you can focus on to keep things in momentum. Big thing for me last year was, the last 2 years, was realizing it's okay and giving myself permission to change. Because what I would do is I would set a goal, and my aha moment was around hot yoga. Obsessed with hot yoga, right? I went to a Bikram class one day. I was like all over. And so the way that I work is I was like, I'm going to do 100 days of hot yoga. There was no challenge. There was no one else. There was just me. I'm going to do 100 days of hot yoga. Yep. And so what I had kind of a in my face wake up call around that, because I had been speaking at a gig in Long Beach, and I'm driving back to the desert, and on my way back, I'm realizing, because, we have this great technology now where it tells me what time I'm going to arrive. Right. I realized I'm not going to make my yoga class, and it's the last one of the day. And so I'm on the phone with my daughter, who is at that time, I don't know, she's probably like 11 or 12. And I'm telling her, can you Google other yoga studios on my way back? Let's find, and we're having this thing, can't see anything, Mom. And then I would call her back. I've even written a one-person show about it. So intense. And so I was having this moment. I'm just focused on it, and I'm driving. And I got to the windmills, which are right outside of Palm Springs. So it was about 30 minutes from class. And I realized that I was not going to make it on time. And it's not a class you can walk in late to. Right. And so I had this moment where I had to let that go. And it was me facing the addict in me a little, which used to be addicted to alcohol and now was addicted to these challenges, to this idea of 100 days. And I gave myself permission to change my mind. It's okay that I don't do 100 days. And that was a big turning point. So I've been really a proponent for that. We can change our mind, because a lot of times we're afraid of being flaky. Yeah. But the people that show up and are part of the WBMC, the people that are watching this show, you're not flaky. Yeah. We may be afraid of being that. But I think it's more important for us to give ourselves permission to change our mind. Mm-hmm. And so then the last piece is reboot, that it's really good to shake things up, change them, reboot. I just finished leading my class, Ignite 2020, where we are looking at the last year, rebooting, shaking things up, setting our desires and our focus for this year, shaking things up rather than just automatically going right into what you're going to do this year. So those are the 5 stages. So it's Ignite, Imagine, Act, Evolve, and Reboot.
That's so cool. I love it. I love the evolve one too. I think that's a big one. I mean, they all are very important, but that evolve, giving yourself permission to change. I mean, we get set in who we are, our roles of who we are, how we connect with certain people in our lives, family, friends, colleagues, and stuff. And people say they like change, but they really don't, But then when you do it, man, isn't it great, And I think that's a huge piece of. What's the last one again?
It was Reboot.
Reboot, yeah.
And basically that's disrupt your reality regularly. But back to the evolve too. It can be giving yourself permission to change your mind, not just change. Yeah. As to what I like to remind people is that evolve and give yourself permission that today I might want to do 100 days of yoga. Tomorrow I might not want to. And the day after I might want to do it again. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we're constantly, depending on when, nothing is solid. Right. There's no ground under our feet, as Pima Chodron would say, right? There is no ground. It's just looking each step and feeling each step. Where am I? Who am I right now in this moment? I might not be that moment, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about moments. I think that's, coming from the theater with Mr. Louis,
Oh, yeah.
and living in that sort of, I love moment to moment acting and thinking about and being able to have those moments of change where you're like, you know what, I'm not doing it this way, even though I said, I love it. I love it. So
Yeah.
that's super cool. So, and
Yeah.
that's part of the plan that's within the Women's Business Center. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the methodology. You say it.
Methodology.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everything at the WBMC, and then there's the planner, and then there's like a bunch of tools, and then the tools section has it in there, and it's all we throughout there.
Yes, and it's Women's Business Momentum Center.
Yes,
I got it. I love that momentum. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Are you feeling with 2020, the whole 2020 vision, 20, I feel this just sense of forward motion and, new decade, right? Like thinking about like just personally where I was a decade ago from where I am right now, and sort of looking at that time period and going, my goodness, it's like, it's a new start. It's a new this. Are you feeling that with everybody that you're talking to? I feel it,
Yeah. I mean, we just did our annual retreat for the Women's Momentum Center in Rancho Mirage, right by here, down in the desert. And one of the exercises I had the ladies do before they got there so that we could share it was write down one or two things that was significant from each of the last years from the last decade. And then, and this is a fun exercise for anyone to do. And then I teamed them up in 2s and 3s, and I had them, and I showed them how to do this because I love bringing in the acting, right?
Yeah.
I had them act as if they were long lost friends that hadn't seen each other for 10 years. Oh my gosh, like even like waving across the room, I did it. And they were cracking up. And then, because that's someone that is interested.
Yeah.
And imagine when you haven't seen someone for 10 years, it is that kind of that moment. We don't think about it that much, but like to share it that way and say, oh my God. And they'll say, what have you been up to? And say, I want to hear the whole thing. And then gave the other person permission to then go down this list, but in a feeling it rather than reading off the list. It gave it a little bit more of a energy behind what they were sharing. I think I learned a lot by doing that exercise and was always shocked. I mean, what we do is every week we look at the last week and we look at what you did, and I have questions for them to help them evolve. So I'm used to doing that retrospective and that reflection, but I hadn't done it on a decade before. That is the very first time I've done that. And I agree. I think it's really powerful to look back, and it really makes you realize how much you can shift and evolve and change. Like who I was. For me, it's been significant because 10 years ago, I gave up drinking.
Okay, that's right. Yep.
And so this decade has been a conscious decade. However, I've still been facing my demons of addiction in new ways. Who knew that was going to show up, which has been really fun. Yeah,
absolutely. And you started this business years ago too, right? So
a little over this center 10 years ago. Yes.
Okay. This center. Yeah. That's so amazing. Yeah. Transformation, all the time. Hey, let's talk about origin story. Like talk about where you're from, where you came up from, and sort of how you got to where you are.
It's funny because I'm speaking on March, I think it's the 15th, and it's the first time ever that they're doing people from different countries. So they're like, oh, you can represent England. And it's so funny because yes, I'm from England. I've been here since I was 19 and I just turned 50 last year. Yeah. And so I'm more here than I am there.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity to speak. I'm like, I'll do England.
Yeah.
And they're asking me questions and they're like, what do you love about England? And my mom's cracking up because my mom's visiting from England right now. And she's just cracking up because I'm not that person. I originally came here, to go back to the story, when I was 19, but I came here when I was in England, I was working, I was in drama school or college.
Yes.
My husband laughs because it's not really college in England, because it's really the last 2 years of high school.
Right. Okay.
But I went to college.
Yes.
And so I'm doing the last 2 years of high school, which are more specialized in England. And it's theater. And it finished, and all I care about is going to the local pub or bar or nightclub and drinking and having a good time.
Right.
I'm not really feeling great about myself and where I'm heading. And so what's the best way to get an unlimited supply of alcohol? Go bartend. And I started bartending actually when I was 15 years old at a nightclub.
What? Wow.
Manager, you had to be 16, which is crazy in itself, but I was 15 and I started bartending. So now here I am, 18. I've been bartending for a while. I've moved to different nightclubs because every time you could drink as much as you wanted. You were allowed while you were working, which isn't that crazy.
Yeah.
Until I start working there. And then they changed the rule pretty quickly.
Yeah.
My mom thought that was so funny.
Transformation yet again, but yeah, a different kind.
No, right. And that speaks volumes right there. So I'm working at a nightclub. I've got my own apartment, and in the daytime I'm working at a factory. I'm putting things on the production line, gathering things from the warehouse. So I've got blue coat on, not at all a glamorous existence, and really not feeling very alive. Yeah. And I think the clincher was I was dating this guy who was a plasterer, which in England means, you're putting the plaster on the walls, and then they're painted in it.
Right.
And, it wasn't the greatest relationship. And kind of the clincher was my friends were staying over. He was staying over at my apartment. And I'm going to probably go too much information here, Heather, so you'll just stop me up if I need to. But in England, it's very common for men of all ages to just urinate everywhere. They have a few beers, and then they can open up the washing machine, the front door. You go down, everybody knows somebody that's done this. They know many, 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 many people that have done this. I don't know if it's the beer, I don't know what it is, but in England, this is very, very common. And I have to tell everybody that before I tell you this story. So I wake up one morning, and my friend's there with me in my apartment, and then we look, and it's like, Paul, he was the plasterer I was dating, did you pee in the closet? And in the chair? And it was like, is this my life right now? Yeah. I'm dating Paul the plasterer who likes to get plastered. I'm working at a nightclub, and I'm working at a factory.
Right.
And I said, I gotta leave. So I moved to America because my dad and my stepmom lived here, and they kept telling me about all of these great parties they were having. And I was like, they're having more fun than I am. I'm going to move there. So at 19, I moved to America. And I kind of continued what I've been doing. I was just having more fun, partying, doing some acting a little bit. Yep. And gradually, if you're an actress in LA, you've got a day job, you're waiting tables, you're doing things. Yep. And I was working for a restaurant, and he wanted me to come in and get him organized. I had a knack for that. Right. And gradually what happened was, he said I was building his website, I was doing his email marketing, I was organizing his standard operating procedures and doing things like that. And one day he said to me, we need to 1099 you, so you need your own company. And that's when I was like, because I don't half-ass things. I was like, I'm not going to just come up with a name and then that's it and we're done. I'm going to have a company. Right. My daughter had just been born, and I was debating what is it that I do, and I realized it was coaching maybe. So I signed up for a coaching program, and acting at the time was getting to the point where I was not enjoying it anymore. And I wasn't just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. We had our own fake management company, and this is before 9/11. We had clipboards with fake management. We would get the breakdowns, which was all the roles each day. We have 4 friends. We're on the computer. We've got cover letters. We had a hat on. We each had a designated area. We would drive around, deliver headshots. I mean, we spent hours every day working on this. And it got to me, I was like, I was done. I've got my daughter at home. She's just been born. So I let acting go, and it felt really, really good. And I launched my business. And I've been building it based on what's needed. At one point, the Small Business Association told me, can you do something for the women once a month? that became Monthly Momentum, which was a monthly meeting, which I did for a decade, and it gathered my tribe. And I begin to create just what they need, and it evolved over that time.
That's amazing. I love that. I on these podcasts, like, I always learn so much about people that I didn't know that I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. That is so great. And I did not know that about. But, you know, I was like, isn't supposed to be when you're pissed that you're drunk, but that means something different here, right? You know?
That's why it's called pissed. Because women, let me be clear, this is not women. It's just men that seem to not be able to control. Even members of my family have been known to, they do it in their sleep, right? And I know we're going off on this, but open the front door. And then you're like, hey,
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah, I've witnessed. So yeah, anyway, but yeah. Let's see. So we talk a little bit about the one woman show as well. And I know you do lots of these. I know you because you have the theater background and acting and all of that. I mean, I sometimes think, you know, what a gift we have of having that experience, right? And understanding empathy and bringing that to, you know, you're bringing it to women and, you know, and humanity. And, you know, I've been bringing it to the technology world for a really long time. And it's just so fun. And then I haven't been on the boards in a while. And so I would tell us about that.
So as I mentioned, I gave up acting.
Mm-hmm.
That was right. It was about my 40th birthday. So it was a decade ago. And the last hurrah, I always imagined that for my 40th birthday, I would do a one-woman show. So I did a one-woman show about my addiction and quitting drinking, because that's the same time I quit drinking. And it was called The Zen of Red Wine. And I did theater in LA, in Alhambra, got all my friends and family to buy tickets to cover the cost of the theater. And I did the show, and I did one night, and that was it.
Right.
Then I felt so good. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm missing acting. I was enjoying coaching so much and business. And over the last decade, it's been really fun using those tools, like you said, thinking creatively, being comfortable speaking, like doing something like this. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And speaking, which is a big part of what I do for my business, easy for me, fun for me. Yeah. And I started doing, probably about 3 years into the business, an event called Her Story, which is a women's conference that I did once a year for about 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And the first year, my mission was 20 speakers, and each one would speak for 10 or 15 minutes, which is a lot of speakers.
Yeah. Right.
And I was coaching them all and helping them. And it was all origin story. It was all around the why. Right. And it was very, very vulnerable. And I had a moment when I was watching, we were doing like a dress rehearsal for that event. And I was sitting there with my feet up, and I realized, oh, that's why I did all that acting stuff. It's part of it, because I was sitting there and I knew what questions to ask them, more of this, less of this, do that. I was directing them. I'd never been trained as a director, but I knew enough, and it felt so right. So over the last decade, I spent a lot of time using my acting in Toastmasters, doing award-winning speeches and contests, and really enjoying doing webinars and things like that. So I've been using my acting muscles and never really thought twice about acting. But I did know from my 40th birthday that on my 50th birthday, I would do a one-woman show. I would do another one-woman show. So this whole last year, I was like, going to do my one-person show. And then wasn't sure what it's going to be. And then it was like, okay, it's going to be the Zen of hot yoga. And it's about the 10 years. And then I got this, I'm in a writer's group. And I got an email, and it was for a fringe festival that was up in Joshua Tree by my house. Mm-hmm. And it said, you know, send submissions of your pieces. And I haven't written anything. This was June of last year. And so I sent off a couple of sentences about how awesome my show was, and what it was that did not exist at the time. I operate to.
Yep.
And I'm waiting to see, and I hear back. Wow. We're so excited. We want your show to be a part of it. I heard back in July. Wow. So I had 4 weeks to write, rehearse, and get it up there,
Rock it
memorize.
out. Wow. Yeah.
And but the thing is, I knew I was going to do it anyway for my birthday, which was in October. So this was kind of a nice way to ease into that. I found a director. I started working on it. I had so much fun. And I started working on it and I realized I want to act again.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And so, but it's different now because, and this goes back to that kind of passion, excitement, because now I'm in a completely different place. I'm doing it because I want to.
Yeah.
I'm doing it on my terms. And I'm not really pursuing anything right now. I'm loving my business. I don't want to stop doing my business, my coaching, speaking. But I took an acting class just for fun. My writers group, we get to stand and perform just for fun. So I was really enjoying and surprised by that. I do the Fringe Festival. I win first place in the festival. With my was really, really, really fun.
That's awesome.
And then went ahead and rehearsed the show some more and did it for my 50th birthday in October.
Amazing. Wow. I'm just like, yep. This is so awesome. I love it. That is so cool. Yeah. I think coming back to, we have so many friends that have been actors, throughout. And then, I do think people come back to it too, informed in different ways from different things in their lives. And, it's always fun to see how we sort of bring these things together and then, use them. Yeah. I appreciate, I remember, what's that theater degree for? And, I just in San Diego and I was like, this is what that's for, to bring it with you to everything you do, from empathy to being able to coach somebody, to be able to pull things out of folks, to like get to the essence of who they are, because you understand story. We understand as theater artists, the art of story, right?
I think another piece of it too that's important is the rehearsal. Because when you look at how much you rehearse, and I was most certainly reminded of that with my one-person show. Now, I was rehearsing. I love being in my pool in the summertime. That's why I live in Palm Springs, which everything is crazy when it's 125 degrees out here in the summer. Yeah. But I'm in my pool. I'm so happy, and I just bounce up and down, reciting my lines to myself, and then I mock up the stage in my guest room, and I'm rehearsing. There's hours, and I spent more time rehearsing than performing.
Yeah.
But hands down. Absolutely. And then you think about, as an actor, the hundreds of thousands of hours in acting class, not even rehearsing, just working on your skills. And I think what I like to impart that and remind business owners about that, because one of the things I do is I help women write their signature presentations and their speeches, write them for them sometimes, co-create them with them. I listen, it's their voice. And then they need to rehearse. They need to, and that is the piece that I think is really missing for a lot of business owners. Yeah. That ethic of rehearsing like crazy. I find so many women who know what they do really well. They're experts. They could chit chat like you and me right now. Yeah. But on stage, and you and I could both do this too. Somebody could say, hey, can you do a presentation on X? We could stand up 7:50, a whole day. We could stand there, right? And just ad-lib, improvise. Yep. What I find fascinating is if you look at TED Talks, which is always my benchmark right there. Yep. They are written, scripted, they're memorized. And I think what scares people about operating at that level, and most signature presentations, they need to be repeatable. Right. And so you can hit a home run just ad-libbing one day because you've been inspired by something you read the day before or someone you spoke to. But if you don't have that driving you the next time you do it, somebody books you and then, right? You need to be able to show up that way. And what's scary for a lot of women that I work with is that you can improv and it's fantastic and everybody says you're great. You write the script and then you're reciting it, and it's going to get worse before it gets better because you have to bring in the spontaneity back. But that's where those hundreds of thousands of hours come in. Get the hell out of everybody, but that's where that comes.
I agree with you. It was always interesting in acting classes where you'll have a director to push you to go over the top, right? Go way over the top. Try it as an opera singer. Try it as this. Try it as that. Because you can always pull back down. But if you never reach up there first, right? And get to sort of that level. Yeah. I believe in, I believe in rehearsal as well. And I think that's something presentation coaches, you know, like that's what it's about as well. It's knowing your subject, right? So you feel comfortable, because I think
Yeah.
people get imposter syndrome. Well, I'm not sure if I know enough, or what if somebody throws me a softball question or that kind of thing. But I think that base, that foundational rehearsal, what that you're talking about, I think is so important. That's so cool. Signature presentations. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I taught a speaker mastery class for a couple of years. So
Mhm.
much fun. It was like acting class for business owners.
Right.
I had them coming in doing Shakespeare,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
right. And one of the things, the exercise I had them do, I as I'm coaching them basically
Right.
on, is I had them go really, really over the top, which for them, they think they're going way over the top. Like when you tell an actor go over the top, we go over the top.
Right. Yes.
But when you tell someone who's not an actor to go over the top, it's probably right where it needs to be. Like sometimes I'm coaching people and I'm standing right there with some of my clients while they're shooting their videos, and I'm directing them as they're
Right.
doing videos for their online courses or for some of
Yeah.
the things. And I'm like, okay, now the energy's got to be there. So I'm helping them really
Yeah.
pump it up, because a lot of times they don't realize that it's not too much.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Oh, it's so great. So last question
Yeah.
that I always ask everyone. If you could pinpoint a moment, person, place, or thing that really sparked you to kind of be seated where you are in this moment, and there's probably a ton,
Yeah.
or not, or, you know, everybody's different, but is there something that you would share with our listeners about kind of what's that spark or moment that comes to mind that you would share with everyone?
The most pivotal moment for me of the last decade was, I wanted to quit drinking for, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years. I mean, I started drinking when I was 8 or 9,
Yeah.
drinking heavily by the time I'm 13. And
Mhm.
I knew it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
It felt good, but then it didn't feel good.
Right. Right.
So I've been in AA for a year one time, a great organization, gone back to drinking. I'd experimented with a lot of different ways of quitting drinking. And I was a very high functioning alcoholic. And so I started my business. Well, it was right before I started my business. If I was coaching clients, and
Right.
my husband had this, I had a daughter at the time. My husband was really great because he never once told me, you need to quit.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I really admire about our relationship.
Yeah.
And it really helped because I needed to get to this on my own. And so decades and decades of this, wrestling with it. And it got to the point where I would drink a 2-liter bottle of red wine and more every single night until I blacked out, and then I would go to bed. And what happened was every single night for many years. And so it got to the point where, of course, I had the shakes and everything in the morning. But what bothered me the most was I couldn't remember conversations I had with my husband. So we would sit on the couch, he'd drink, I'd drink, he'd sit there. He didn't need to drink until he blacked out. But the next morning, he'd ask me something and I wouldn't remember. And you can only wiggle your way around that for so long.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I just stopped talking to him, really. And when I realized that that was kind of my bottom. So he was leaving for Fresno with my daughter, and I looked him in the eye and I said, I'm going to figure this out. I didn't even say what it was. And he knew, and he said, okay. And he left. And I love books like you. I know that you do, right? Every personal development book I could, and I had like 50 of them. And I piled them all up around me on the floor. I got a big whiteboard and I put it there. And I was going to quit drinking this time. I was going to write down the pith, the main point from every single book. I started the first book. I got into it. I was gung-ho. And then I realized, my God, Sisyphus, what the hell are you doing? Right? This is crazy. And then this is the moment right here. It was this moment, I don't know what you want to call it, but it was this moment where I suddenly realized I'm looking for the answer. And I don't even know what the question is. What the hell is the question? And in that moment, everything changed. I realized what I truly wanted was to live consciously. And when I realized that, I saw not drinking as something that was ridiculously sexy, not depriving. I never had a drink since. I've never wanted a drink since. It has been easy. And that moment changed everything, because if I hadn't had that moment, I wouldn't have been in integrity working. I would have probably been very sick by now. Everything would have fallen apart. And instead, I've had a decade of consciousness and having fun with myself and laughing at the addict instead of the addict beating me down. That moment was really, really pivotal for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Well,
brave and vulnerable and
mm,
your story. So thank you.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Sometimes we get that aha, for sure. That's awesome.
But we need it if we're listening.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're
Mm-hmm.
listening, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So what's big and next for you coming up? A big good sigh. That's good.
I am really enjoying the methodology behind this Ignite process and the momentum, the elements of momentum. And so for me, it's a lot of fun to be gathering the Women's Business Momentum Center tribe.
Yeah.
Being there, I've simplified things, because over the decade, what I'd done was made checklists and made it all about pushing, then realized, no, it's about fun. It's about ease.
Right. Yep.
So I've cleared the space now. And as I show up, like when I show up for weekly momentum, what I'm asking now a lot of times is, how does this week feel?
Right.
What feels fun or exciting? Not what's your goal?
What's your list? What's your things? What's your
list, right? We have room for that, but it's phrased differently. So I'm very, very excited about the Women's Business Momentum Center, because I feel like the last year I was clearing space to be there fully for that. And then I work with a lot of women on writing and creating best-selling books. So I've got several women, I call them best-selling divas, who I'm working on their best-selling books right now. And that's really exciting and fun. Launching and just relaunching my speaking and going in. I'm starting on the 19th is the first round. No, the 11th, February 11th is the first round of the World Championship of Public Speaking. So I'm going in for the first round of that on February 11th.
Goodness, how cool is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, super.
I got a long way last year. I got within 2 rounds of the final.
Wow.
And so I'm ready.
That's so exciting. Wow, that's super cool. Well, we'll put all this wonderful stuff in the show notes so everyone can find you and follow and take a look at the Women's Business Momentum Center for sure, and your beautiful books and everything. And I got to come visit to look into it. Yeah. I think that's
You're welcome. Anytime.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's all good.
That's great. Anytime you come to LA too. So absolutely. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Marianne, for being on. It's great to just see your face and this wonderful energy. Everyone, this energy. I love it. It's yay.
And thank you, Heather, because asking me the questions and feeling into the energy of this is such a gift too. I encourage the listeners, ask each other questions, because there's something about coming together that's pretty magical and sharing this energy that will attract things better than any marketing or branding that you can ever do. As much as I'm a big proponent of that, it is the energy is really the driving force behind it.
Yeah, and what we create between us is so important. Either one to one, one to few, one to many, one to the world, right? Yeah, absolutely. So just thank you. And I can't wait to talk to you again soon. So awesome. Well, everybody, that has been another Mavens Do It Better podcast. And here's to a big, beautiful day, this blue spinning sphere. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Marianne. Thank you.